think it, well, the whole vibe was just different this year. It was good. You know, I mean, people were happier. I don't know. A lot of jokes. A lot of hypes.
Oh, that's
Anger.
Yeah.
So it's always better when you have
I thought the other that's really fun to watch because when I came in and I looked up, I said, wait, I didn't see you. I was like, where did he come from?
A lot of people have that reaction.
There you go. I know.
Go back to the original. No, I don't.
From the music in Chicago, he has that song. And it's like, you can walk.
Oh,
I didn't come back to Red Lodge. And we have I'm like, if he shot the music, I'm like, yeah, I can do that. He hit him in the arm. Yeah.
We're on.
We're on? All right, we're gonna start, guys. Thank you, everybody, for showing up.
I didn't make enough, so they're freaking.
I've got mine unless it's changed significantly.
You want?
The only thing that changed is one thing on resort tax.
Okay. Is that the result of the last conversation?
No, well, something I had missed. So.
Being human is
All right, we've done this several times. Council's been involved all the way along. I think I'll have to at least get one meeting in here. So we're just gonna go ahead and start with phase one on elections. Any comments or corrections on elections?
Lonnie, is there a way of making the copy that's up on the screen bigger, since that's what the audience is going to have as a reference to work with?
Bigger than that?
Bigger, let's see.
Bigger than that?
I'd say as big as it will fit.
Yeah.
The sidebar necessary will, oh, there you go.
The PDF, that sidebar there, if you click that little arrow, it'll hide it.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Is the fence line June 20, is that June 2020 or?
Oh, it's, yeah, it's 2021. I forgot to change that, but it's 2021.
I think that's a good one.
Okay.
Thank you. Looks like folks have a hard copy, but you never know what's like permanently.
Yeah. And I don't know, I can't tell if anybody else is online.
It's all pretty close to the same as it was last year, as far as the top lines there. We've got the council.
Mayor,
Yes.
what is the difference, the airport in the description of it says 0.8 mils, but then in the comments it says 1 mil.
Oh, because the 0.8 mils was, last year's, I believe, and this year I was just figuring the one, depending, and like I said in the last meeting we had, that will change, whatever the mill is worth, that amount will change for the airport.
But it is 1 mil? Or is
From
it
what Angela said, unless that changes, but once we get our mills, I'll verify with her exactly what it is that we give them. But usually with the airport, it's part of a mill, or a full mill, or it's based on the mill, is what we give them.
And that it just designated it as a mill, but it was different, it was odd that it changed from 0.8 to 1. That I didn't understand.
Going down to council. Corrections, additions. There.
Mayor? Just because I know this will be a question I've heard from our constituents. Clearly, the amount of the council budget is being split more, not in the general fund this year than last year's. Can you give a sneak peek and just advice to where that's gone?
It's split out between water and sewer. I know there was questions in the past about that, but you guys
We're
take
doing an
on
awful lot of it.
everything, so it's only right for you guys to be split the right, proportionately, just like the mayor is. spends time in all those departments as well as the council. So that's what that reflects. Does anybody else need a copy? James?
Got one. Any other questions, corrections on
Dave, you want
council?
a different one?
I have one of the extra ones there, so.
Move into the mayor. Not a lot has changed there. Nothing has changed. We just split it up.
Okay, I was like, you spent $150, I'm like, how'd that go?
Court?
So really the only change is the increase to the jury, and witness fee line item. With COVID, each trial costs about $1,000 for the city. And we've been averaging 3 to 4 a year, and it's just in case, until we can move back here, all trials are over at the road. That's the only change to my budget.
Questions? Clerk?
Not much, from last year, other than adding an office assistant that would be split between, planning and clerk for different things. Hours turn out to be, 20 hours a week for the person, 10 hours for my department and 10 hours for Jean. And other than that, not much has changed from last year. All the departments have have increased in their budgets due to, increase in wages. So, but that's about standard every year, so. That's all I got on mine.
Questions on the clerks? Planning? James?
Yeah, not a whole lot changed really. We've got, basically our legal notices were up quite a bit, with all the applications. That's probably going to carry into the next fiscal year. But other than that, there shouldn't be any dramatic changes. Ones that little changes to wages, but not to line items.
Okay.
James, is there not you talk about our legal notices are up, but isn't that associated to application fees and stuff there? So isn't there a built-in mechanism? If there's more applications, there's also more money to address it?
This is true, yes.
Do we see where that comes in here, or is that on a separate?
It's on the revenue side, and I don't have revenue sheets attached, so.
I think based on the exponential growth of the community, the planning is a very, very conservative, good budget.
Any more questions for James? Okay. Attorney. Dennison just kind of got saddled with this, so.
Doing the same as last year, it's going well,
Yep, okay.
except for all the problems.
Except for all the wins.
Except for all the problems.
Any questions for Dennison or Lonnie on the attorney? Dave?
Question for the mayor. I know the contract we signed is only through March, but I presume that this is, all built out, assuming that that contract gets extended through the year and beyond. Is that correct?
Whether it's that contract or not, we still have to have an attorney.
Right,
So
right. I'm just making sure
it's
that we have,
plugged into the year.
that we have those costs to accommodate that. So.
Yeah.
Yes.
I noticed that the attorney is the only one that has the salary broken out as compared to benefits.
That was a request. We did, there was a question on, at one of the other budget meetings we had, to have it done for each department. I started it, but with the wages split in percentages and stuff throughout all of the budgets, it was too much work. So I did and I was waiting for Dave to give me like a breakdown from the one that, but at the next meeting, we can have like a sheet that, just one sheet that overall for the wages.
I think that would be good because a lot of people will look at a salary and go, wow, they get paid a lot, not realizing that that does include.
So it'll be like broke out, I believe we were gonna do like a general fund with the wages and general fund with benefits by fund, but not by department, because it's just too much work to try
So
to.
does the benefit, when you have that total figure, can you tell me exactly what that is? Is it, health insurance and paid time off? Or,
So the wages is based on a 2,000, if it's a full-time employee, it's based on a 2,080 hour year. So if they take vacation, sick, that counts towards their
Right.
2,080. So that's already figured in. The rest of the benefits include, retirement and health, what the city has to pay in unemployment, workman's comp,
all of that?
yep.
Social
Medicare.
Security and stuff like, or you don't do Social Security, do you do Social
Not for
Security?
the police officers, everybody.
But the regular employees do Social Security and Medicare?
Yep, Social Security, Medicare, yeah, all that.
Dave?
So my understanding of that action item was just that I was gonna combine all the salaries and show it as a percentage of the general budget. It wasn't necessarily a breakout, it was just salaries represent 5% of our overall budget.
Yeah, whatever.
Okay.
we're
So-
talking about.
so- To dig a little deeper, just to clarify Jody's question, on the attorney, salaries and benefits are broken out.
Mhm.
Is the assumption on all the others that salary is include benefits, or is benefits in another, represented in another line item?
No, it's all included.
So is that the question right? Is
Yeah.
it included in, it is rolled up into salaries unless it's itemized out
Unless-
separately?
But if you look on all of them, it has total salaries on the, so like on the attorneys, it has total salaries, so that includes, so when you go to the other funds and it will have total salaries, that's everything. For that department. So let me see, if I go back to.
Oh, okay, so the total salaries going to the clerk we're looking at right now, that total salaries is really total salaries and benefits and everything there.
Yes, yep. So that includes, yeah, everything.
And that's consistent throughout.
Yes.
It might be helpful, Mayor, if we could just update it so that that line says salaries and benefits, just to clarify and basically eliminate the question before it comes up.
I can do that.
Sure. And then a related question, Lonnie,
Mhm.
it may be in that same line. A few years ago, we had the situation at the library where we had somebody retire, and I know we made some adjustments to make sure that we are accounting for that now. Does that show up in that salary benefits line, or which line does that show up on?
That's a whole separate one.
And does it does show up in here, the money we're putting into that?
No, because we're not putting any, because through the CARES Act, we have money put in it already. So we didn't budget to put more into it unless when we get the mills, and what a mill is worth and stuff. Because the general fund is balanced with based on last year's mill worth. So our mills, I'm assuming, will be worth more. So the mayor had discussed putting that overage into that retirement fund. Pay out when people retire, then it's not affecting the general fund, like actually.
It won't load their budget. If someone retires, then you have to pay out all their unused sick time and their unused paid time off.
Yeah, it'll be an adjustment.
Mayor, would it be possible to have a line item somewhere that just lists what the balance is in that fund, and so we always have an awareness of it, even if there's nothing that's being added
And I can
initially?
put it on the revenue side of it. We wouldn't, this is the expenditure side. We
Okay.
don't want to put it on the expenditure side because then it looks like we're spending it, but I can put it into the,
It has to be on a balance sheet,
yeah.
is where you find it.
Mhm.
But let me rephrase it. If the mills come in, presumably more,
Mhm.
then we'll put it into that, so at that point, it would show up
On here.
on this. And so that's, I guess what I'm saying is,
Okay.
where will that line item be so that we know to keep an eye on it?
Towards the bottom of the,
Just a city hall general, I don't know.
Or would it be added to that, the first page where you have election dues, and just that general, at the first box we looked at?
So before council,
Yes, because it's kind of a.
the only problem with that is it doesn't have its own, like, account. It's set aside in a cash account. So when it's paid out, it hits whatever department it's coming from, but that cash balance is out from that other cash and it doesn't hit the general fund, unrestricted account. So putting it up there on the top is gonna be confusing. So if we put it towards the end of the budget stating like for, yeah, for
Well-
retirement.
just what I'm hearing is that there's some dollar amount, unknown because the mill is unknown yet, that will be,
What I can do is I'll put it as a transfer to that retirement fund.
And that'll
That's
just-
what ultimately it will be because we don't know if it, unless somebody has told us, hey, I'm retiring in December. We don't budget for retirement unless we know. If they hit, then it would be like a budget amendment. So, but I can do it as a transfer out of the general fund to that. So that would be at the very end of the budget, not at the very beginning.
thank you, Mayor.
City Hall.
Don't believe much has changed in this one from last year. Oh, the only thing I increased was I added in for ground maintenance. Just for doing cleaning up outside and stuff. Trying to make it more fun.
What is the what is the subscription that currently says recycling next to that?
Recycle,
Pardon?
to take our recycling down.
So that is our subscription fee to use the recycling center? Okay.
Police. Hopefully everybody will bear with me, I'm still getting settled in. A heck of a time to get settled in. I'm not seeing, aside from the consultant evidence stack, I'm not seeing any major changes. I probably have to get with Lonnie and ask a few questions on a couple of things, but currently I'm open for questions if there are any.
The only big difference from last year was the 25,000 that we have to add in there for the city's portion for the help for the Hells Angels being here.
Yeah.
the county is putting in 25,000, the city put in 25,000 for the extra help. So if we didn't have to put that in there, the police's budget would actually be less than last year. And we have carryover from the CARES Act that was allocated to the police department. In the police policy and training, there was 10,997 in there. And then also with the equipment, I can't remember what was all left that still needs to be bought, but there was still some more stuff that was not purchased before the end of the year. So I just gotta let Greg know what that stuff was. I just can't remember what it was. Other than that, and then the dispatch fee, that is what we have to pay the county this year. So that is correct, the 2,300.
Why did that go down?
You know, I less calls for the city. I don't know. Andrew just told me that, and I was like, "Are you sure that's correct?" Yes. I was thinking,
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, like 2 years ago, it was like 23,000. So, yeah,
It would be, how do they come up with the figures? Like you say, is it just the number of calls?
they have like a big spreadsheet that they started like
Yeah.
5 years ago.
Yeah, they have a spreadsheet. I'm also curious if it wasn't, we did supplement part of the purchase, I'm guessing with the Circle Mobile, and that computer system that we use. I think all the agencies chipped in on that. It wasn't solely the sheriff's office.
Right. So yeah, between calls and some other stuff, that's what the numbers are this year. So.
Chief, are you having any problem getting ammunition?
Trouble in terms of availability?
Yes.
Or- Not right now. I have Scott looking into that. We are down on, rifle ammunition for range days. I went through that, and looked, and we actually only had around 6 boxes left. So,
Based on the astronomical prices, is this enough money for you to purchase ammunition?
I think that would suffice, yes.
Thank you.
Yep.
Chief?
Yep.
I see that our training is actually higher than it was last year. Let me rephrase that. Our training is higher than was budgeted for last year, but because of the CARES Act, we spent a lot of extra. My question is that roughly 19,000, which includes the carryover, is that sufficient? Or, this is a question, this is not a knock. Do we need to, if our mills come in higher, do we need to add some additional money for training? We're putting an awful lot of weight on your shoulders, and I want to make sure we set you up to succeed. And so is that dollar amount sufficient, or?
Absolutely, we can always use more money for training. I know that's what the public wants to see. They want to make sure that, their officers are trained, and training, unfortunately, isn't cheap. There's travel time, there's hotels, there's lodgings. I mean, like, the former chief was actually able to find training cheaper out of state than it would be in state, just cost-wise with flights and everything. I could certainly always use more for training, absolutely, especially currently right now, because what I'm trying to do is hire 1, maybe 2 more officers. As it sits right now, it's currently 1, and without sounding rude or anything like that, that officer that we hire is useless to us anywhere from 12 months to 15 months. Potentially, it could be 7 months, it could be 6. They do have to complete their FTO process and their academy training 3 months, and it's a year probationary period where they really can't do much by themselves. But I think after the academy, more training for those officers in their specific areas that we like to see them working on. Like I said, we could certainly use more money for training, yes.
Mayor, can we request that we flag that line for training, just for a possibility, if we do find we have extra money, that we flag that line as one of the possible places to utilize some of that?
I would support that too.
Thank you.
I would
Most
too.
definitely.
Thank you.
You have a lot of new officers on your
Yes,
team.
I'm
And
actually
you're,
one of the
you
old
know,
guys now, so.
yeah, so I think the better training, the more training, the better, so.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Mayor.
Good to move on. Fire department, that's a contract that we have with Fire District 7, and they get 28 mils.
So that number will change, whatever the mill is worth. So that will be figured on.
Streets is just strictly salaries.
Plus benefits, right?
Yep, that's that.
We're gonna take care of that.
Okay.
So Jody had a meeting, or couldn't, she had an appointment today, so she couldn't come to discuss hers. At the last meeting, we discussed putting the library's revenue sources in there. So that's on the one side, and, that makes up their budget. The board and Jody go through and determine where they want to spend their budget, so that's what they came up with. She did say, I talked to her yesterday, and I guess the county, or the county library got some kind of ARPA money for the library. She just didn't know how much that will be, when they will get it, so that might come as a budget amendment later on, possibly if they want to spend it, this fiscal year. So. But nothing else has changed in that library. We discussed that.
Do the, I don't know if this is rhetorical or not, the current remodeling,
Mm-hmm.
are any invoices coming in, and for whom are they coming into?
That was a whole separate deal with the library. Those aren't city funds.
Okay.
That we used for that.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Any other questions on the library? Yes?
I just have a follow-up as I'm processing Lonnie's answer to Pete's question. I get that and the library is its own little thing, and I understand that, it's basically they get mills, they're there, but isn't part of the city's involvement in the library is, we're not responsible for the library as an entity, but the building is ours, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't know how that all works. That was set up a long time ago. So, but the remodel was is that a donation grant or something that the library
Right.
something, I don't know how that all works. You would have to ask Jody on
And
that,
I-
but as far as like any bills coming through for the remodel, they're not passing to the city.
Okay, and I was just trying to, because like I said, my understanding is that one thing that the city owns is actually the physical structure of buildings. So I just wondered if, I get that it's not dollars that we're allocating, but I'm wondering if it does need to show up somewhere, and I don't, you know.
Well, that would be in your balance sheet. I mean, do you have a schedule of all the buildings that you insure? and their value?
It's under our property schedule.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, but as far as their remodel and stuff, that was to the library board and their.
Yeah.
So,
I will say, if you want to go back into history, Bill Boise did a very detailed research on that. And, I know he still has it. It's pretty good. But,
Make sure you increase your insurance on it after the remodel.
Actually, that's.
but Bill did a great report on that.
So do we need to make any changes because the building is worth more?
So when the remodel is done, then for next, because the property schedule is already done for this year, so for next year, we can include the remodel, the overall worth of the building. And you guys can definitely talk to Joey on that.
Thanks, Mayor.
Yep. Public Works. Mostly salaries. Questions?
And then we did decrease it from last year because in the resort tax, we budgeted a full-time employee strictly for parks and streets.
And that's basically due to the change in the resort tax.
Being
Resort tax now can be used for operations, not just for capital expense.
Yes, that would be included in that.
Move on to weeds. Not a whole lot's changed there.
Do you actually have someone who goes around and, like a weed person that goes around and looks for, grass that's a foot tall and you have knapweed or?
Is complaint based. And I checked one last week. I looked by colors.
All right.
So Chief, if you knock on the mayor's door and you find a notebook that's labeled the weed book or the grass book, it's okay.
All right.
Those books are legal
It's not hallucinating colors, it's colors of the, anyway. And we get a few of those that come in, and then, we just hire a company. We have a process that we go through.
Well, I know that one time there was talk of doing that sooner and being more proactive, because by the time we're super dry and it's right like it is right now, and you've got someone up at the golf course with tall weeds, and then you send them a letter,
Yeah.
and then are we gonna be working on maybe being more proactive in that, or
We
is
have
it just,
been.
you haven't? Okay,
Yes.
that's what I was wondering.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And that's more under the tall grass part,
okay.
so, that golf course area does a lot of tall grass.
And probably
Actually,
expired too.
Yeah, actually, I've been driving by there. People are really mowing their own
Good.
now for a
Good.
change.
That's good.
No, so we'll end up. Want to move on to resort tax? Jane, do you want to go over the parks part of that, so you get back to working on your?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I just will say that we were able to get, some parks funding in there. There's a couple of projects we might look at doing. Mainly, large expenses could be, tied to fixing the tennis court, and/or the basketball court. So that's probably where a good chunk of the parks budget would go. And so I just want to thank everybody also for getting wayfinding in there, and I know that's been a priority for the chamber, and different people that, want to be able to help promote tourism and give us the image that, we are a welcoming community. And so I think getting that in there and being able to do a couple new wayfinding signs a year is appreciated by a lot of people.
Questions for James on the parks budget? Resort tax?
I just had a quick question on contracts for snow plowing. Do we not do our own snow plowing, or do you actually hire someone?
What's your question?
So I think that one we added for plowing the Senate, or the library and the chamber parking area and the.
Okay.
Library and the art skill.
Oh,
This was a result of, you remember the land use we got, and they did an in-kind because we've been paying to plow it, and so the question came up, how come we don't have that in our budget, and so it's been added to our budget.
okay,
They want theirs plowed right away
great, okay,
in the morning.
okay.
Jim
Gotcha.
has to do the emergency routes.
Understood.
And they plow around the pool sidewalk and, Pride Park. So, because they can hit it a lot sooner than our guys can. So that's part of the other plowing that we contract out.
So if I restate what I just heard, plowing involves two parts. Just because the nature of some of it needs done more quickly than others, yes, we have our own plowing services, but we also utilize outside services as a means of making sure that certain things get plowed earlier rather than having to wait until the end. Good with that answer?
I'm good with that.
You may be excused.
Thank you.
James is working on a report. We got to interrupt. So let's go. Anything else with parks? Go to streets and resort tax and jump back up the top.
So this was discussed at the last meeting, because there is an overage, or, since we did so well on resort tax collections this year, the auditor suggested to go above what we actually collected. So in that turn, with the cash available and what we're budgeting, there was a lot of money to budget for resort tax. Granted, if the money doesn't come in like we budgeted, we don't spend it. So with that being said, Dave had brought up at the last meeting about putting aside in the streets department, $100,000 to use for street improvement. So that was added in. And then, new plow truck, we just are adding the full amount instead of doing a lease agreement for one of those. And then that way we'll just own it outright and not have that payment going forward. And we have Glory's addressing projects and street signs in there again, which I think needs to get done this year, correct?
What's that?
The street signs, the addressing project.
Yeah, I've never seen that completed map yet from Coley, and that's where we're still at that deal, but we've got that estimate of the 40,000 to replace all of the street signs, posts and whatever necessary when that project comes out.
You know, that was like 3 years ago. Do we need to up that 40,000?
I haven't noticed a big change of prices in those signs right now, but possibly by the time we actually get it done, if they may, so it probably wouldn't hurt to up it a little and have that.
What do you guys think?
You know, up that.
Now, and part of it is we've added 1,000 per street. I apologize. I'm looking at the updated version, so I was looking at my old, so I'm trying to find the 40 as an independent line item.
The street signs?
Street signs and.
930.
All right. Oh, yeah, we don't have that there, so okay. And then you've got below that the street improvements of 100,000. I think I would say we're probably okay with the 40, knowing we've got 100,000 buffer built in there as well. And again, for the public, the idea of both of those were we wanted to be able to use resort funds if it came in, but we didn't want to build it in as a dependency such that we'd be in trouble if it didn't come in. And so the idea is that we have some significant projects that have flexibility. And so presumption is we'll do them, but by the time it gets to the construction season, we'll have 3/4 of the year behind us and we'll know whether we're good to go. And then on that, I also heard the plow truck buying it outright. And so that's a new line item in here. Did you have questions on that?
No, I guess my main thing was that I didn't know which of these items were, these are going to happen no matter what, first priority, versus if we get extra resort tax money, what are we doing?
Plow truck is gonna happen, we're in the process of getting the bids on it right now.
Okay, so that's
And we need to,
priority.
the two older trucks, the one is just, we're gonna, as soon as we get a new truck, they'll go down the road because they're just not, they're 25, 26 years old, they've been wore out when we bought them. So if we buy new, like our two new ones, they're gonna last, a lot better time. So we bought those last two on a lease purchase, so we paid a lease option for 5 years on them. But by the end of the deal, we paid a heck of a lot more than what the trucks cost. So this one, we figured with this resort tech, we can buy it right out and save about $60,000 on the cost of that truck.
Okay.
And so we're just waiting, we've got all the information out there, we're waiting on the bids to come in, and then, we probably, the way things are today, we probably won't see a truck until next year, but we have to get the purchase done now, because they're like everything else. Availability right now isn't as good as it isn't like they have them sitting on the lot.
So for the signs and supplies, does that include like if you get petitioned to put up a new stop sign?
Yes, the signs and supplies are when there's stop signs tore down, or
Yeah.
we have to replace a pole, or,
Do you think that's enough? Because I know that there's been a lot of
yeah, we're.
local constituents over in my area on like Adams and 18th and Word at 18th, where there's a lot of accidents, where they'd like to have another, stop signs in there.
Yeah, we aren't gonna add stop signs where they're not necessary. It's the traffic laws that do it, and we have, we had a group come up that wanted to add stop signs, but stop signs don't control speed, we don't use them to control speed, and stop signs have to have there's a set of rules of what constitutes putting a stop sign in. And the two are running into heavier traffic from one lane to the other, or visibility, but stop signs are a overused deal in a lot of places. And like, when I went to that school, the very first thing the guy said was, don't let your law enforcement get involved in setting your traffic, or you'll have a stop sign at every corner. And that's the truth.
If there would have been a stop sign at 18th and Word, I wouldn't have had a fender bender 2 years ago, but that's
Somebody
sorry.
did not yield the right of way.
Because it was the year we had all that snow, and there was a huge pile of snow underneath a pine tree, and you could not see. Yeah. It was like,
That's driving our conditions and yield the right of way.
yeah.
Laws are
I like mine sign, he's when he said two objects can't exist at the same space, so.
I know, yeah, exactly. So in order to determine do you go by the number of accidents that happen in a certain area?
They do if there's a excessive amount of accidents, but that's talking like, you have to have like 30 accidents in a 2-year period.
Okay. Some of
Will
us
you
are
work
prob-
on that?
Not personally, no.
But the law enforcement keep track of accidents, and they
Yeah.
they bring up intersections that we need to look at and why. But just like they say, and whenever there's a fender bender at an intersection, generally it's somebody forgot to yield the right of way.
Yeah.
And open intersections are better traffic flow, and stop signs are not the answer to accidents.
No.
And for awareness, there's another issue too. As you know, you can only park so close to a stop sign. And so a lot of those areas that have come to us, and wanting stop signs as a mechanism to control speed, ends up being problematic because you eliminate, if you ran one at every corner, you also eliminate more than 50% of the parking in town as a byproduct.
Let's get back to the resource.
Yeah. We had talked at the last meeting, about the idea of debt retirement on there, and I see a reserve on here. And in fairness, paying for a plow truck all up front counts as debt retirement. Did we put it on, and I'm not seeing it? Did we
Well, it's
allocate it
like towards the
elsewhere?
bottom, pool bond debt reduction, 462,000.
Okay. And so there we have it specifically tied to the pool bond, and so for the public, that gives us that ability to have a pretty big number that, again, our budget isn't destroyed if it doesn't come in, and if it does come in, we have our pool paid for in just a couple of years, 2-3 years, so. And did our auditor sign off on that and say, yep, we could do that and that is the appropriate way?
Mhm.
Fantastic.
So, there was one thing I added in here that was not, we didn't talk about at the last meeting, and I completely forgot about it, but, we need to upgrade our server for the police department and city hall, but it's mainly for the police department because of their videos. And the server we have is getting to about, I don't know, 5, it's getting up there for a server, and if that server crashes, we're kind of all, well, so, they had quoted the 18,000 includes the server and installation and whatever else may arise with them getting everything. Because the way that I guess the server is currently set up, it was not set up correctly, so they have to do a whole lot of background stuff to get the servers, the new one, set up the correct way. I don't know. He was talking a whole bunch of.
It makes sense to me, even with what you're explaining, it makes all the sense in the world.
So that's what the extra 18,000 is in there. So other than that, everything is about the same from the last time, and I added stuff from what we had discussed last time as well.
Any other questions? Resort tax. Okay. Water fund. Questions for Jim? Go ahead, Dave.
Mayor, just one question back on the resort tax, just to confirm my understanding. This resort tax is the 3%, has nothing to do with the 1%, correct?
Correct.
Okay. If, Mayor, I might suggest that maybe in our title on that, we just add 3% in front of the resort tax, just because I know that's a reoccurring question I get, and I've been answering it, and I'm happy to hear that I've been answering it correctly.
Okay, water. Nothing. Oh, I did change something. So, one of our employees is working some in our building department. So when we get to building, I'll try to explain that as well. So I reduced, because 10% of his time will be in the building department, so I reduced his time in water and sewer by the 5% in each one. So that the wages went down a little bit in water and sewer. But then I put it into the building fund. So, other than that, nothing else I believe that's changed from our last time. That's good.
Questions on the water fund? Okay. Let's move to sewer.
And same thing with the around the wages went down a little bit from the last time we met, just because of the percentage for one of the employees. And other than that, nothing else has changed from this.
I'm sorry, can I just ask one question on the, I just noticed on the water fund, it's the only department that we've come across so far that has a line item for depreciation.
Because water and sewer are enterprising funds, and they have everything within those funds depreciate, so we have to account for it in their budget.
But is it real dollar amount spent?
No, but we still have to budget it in there. So it's not, it's in the fund.
Okay. And it's only because it's an enterprise fund?
Quick question, there's two legal notice lines, 331 and 335.
I think I might have just mislabeled those. I don't know, I can't remember which one's which. There's two legal notices lines in there. Legal services is one, 352 is legal services, and 331 is legal notices. So legal services would be like if we needed something
Through the
the attorney other than if we had to go through bond counsel, something like that, that would fall under those.
Issues on sewer.
I'm sorry, on last year's budget, we had 385,000 for debt relief, and we don't have anything.
Because we paid off a loan.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you. Gas tax.
So gas tax is kind of where it is. It is also kind of its own enterprising fund because we get, payments from the state and they give you a set amount for the year. This is what you're gonna get. And so that target number is based on what we're getting from the state and then what we have for cash available. So that's what makes up that budget. And then Jim just kind of, it's a pretty small budget for gas taxes kind of stuff. But, it helps with having resort tax now to help alleviate, but gas tax can only be used for streets, sidewalks, it can't be used for anything.
And historically, this is pretty much the money that we've used to do it, which is why we added some in resort tax. And this actually includes two numbers. Normally, we just have the top part of that page. And this year, that additional 92 is, presumably that's a one-time thing.
No, so,
Or is that-
so the state created, I don't know which.
There's a 1%
House bill they
deal that comes on that, so every year, there's another 1% you get, and it's tied into a 2-year, you have to use it as asphalt or concrete on the ground. It cannot be used for equipment or fuel or anything like that, it has to be, and then, so you have a 2-year window to use that, but you have to have the matching fund, and that's where we have the matching fund in the resort tax for the gas tax, and that's what paid, White Avenue, the hill on White Avenue, that's what did the seal cracking at the country club. And this year we are gonna do some resurfacing of some alleys and with, street down on 7th and Chamber. And so we're keep a good eye on that because if you don't use it, you lose it. And so Lonnie and I keep good track on what's available to us, what the matching fund will be, and then I find projects that we can do with that money that meet the criteria for it. Because you have to use it within that 2-year period or you lose it. So I'm finding ways of using that money because it's accessible and we need it.
So that resolution you guys approved at the last meeting, that was to request some money for these projects. They have to go through the state for them to release it. But they send me a sheet, an allocation to all of the towns. This is how much you're gonna get. And then if this one is a little bit more because we had leftovers from the previous project, but we carried that forward. We're required to carry it forward to be used on the next project. So that's where the 92,000 comes in at. And they just started that.
So hopefully every 2 years or hopefully every year when we get there, but we're gonna be doing something with that, utilizing it and not letting it go away.
Building code.
Okay, so the building code is extremely high this year. Tim has been super busy. He collected over, I didn't look this morning, but it was over 100,000 worth of permits this year, which normal for him is like 35,000 in a year. So with the building department, it's its own thing. They have to be separately audited. There's a lot of stipulations for the building department. So his budget is high this year because he has to spend the money that he received, or he's gonna have to reduce his building fee. And he does not want to do that because he said this is kind of like a one-time kind of situation with this boom and stuff. So we met with him. So his wages are in there, and then also I discussed about one of the other employees helping him a couple hours a day. So his wages are in there as well. And then we just increased some of his normal line items, but then towards at the bottom, We had actually put money aside last year for him to get a new truck. Well, then with this humongous amount that he got, so we budgeted in for a new pickup for him. Computers, we're gonna get him a desktop for in the office and then a laptop that he can take out with him out in the field. And hopefully kind of learn how to use it out there. And then the other thing is office upgrades. His office has been neglected for many, many years. So, he would like upgrades for his office. So with his budget, it's pretty much, he needs to spend it. So, and then, he can carry over a reserve. We have that in there as well. So that's kind of his budget in a nutshell.
Has he had any luck finding a truck yet?
No.
I said that I know is his problem, is he's cash in hand and nobody has a truck to sell.
Yeah.
Training?
Yeah,
You won't
so
even
that
let it
is the training we increased for, the other employee to get, certification.
Thank you.
Mhm. We're just kind of looking towards the future in that. So. That's all I got on this. The next one we hadn't discussed yet was, our capital improvement fund and the special restricted law enforcement fund that consists of the drug forfeiture and the Department of Justice asset program. So, capital improvement, I included 20,000 in there for city hall improvements this year. We need to redo our awning out here, where the rain gutter goes, there's a log that is rotted out, so we need to have that replaced so the water's not dripping on our sidewalk, making safety hazards. The breezeway between us and the police department is gonna get enclosed, so it's not snow and stuff in there. And then whatever other kind of, improvements, upgrades we may need to do. The building's getting older, so it is old. And, unless we, when you type for a new city hall, this is gonna have to do it. So, and I don't know if we would spend the full 20, but we have a capital improvement fund that's been sitting there. So we spend a little bit out of it every year to help kind of make improvements. So, and then the special restricted law enforcement fund, the drug forfeiture, that one, what's showing for a budget is what they have sitting there for cash. There was some transfers from the court that was paid into there. The Department of Justice program, we have not received any money from them for 2 years. So that, we just budget what cash is sitting there. That is another fund that can only be used for specific things for the police department. So those are those two funds that they still are part of the budget. Show you.
Okay,
Help me understand that whole capital improvements 40/30 fund.
Mm-hmm.
As I'm looking at that, I see things that I would expect to either see in the general fund or in the resort tax fund. So what is this and what makes it special?
It's just a separate capital improvement fund that was set up a long time ago. What makes up the money that was in there was the sale of land.
Okay, yeah, this was the land sale that,
Yeah.
that is,
So
okay.
instead of using general fund money and stuff, or resort tax money, we can use this fund for the capital improvement. So, because since we've sold land and stuff and it was just, and it was a long time ago, and that money was
Yeah. But it was earmarked that it could only be used for separate things.
Yep, capital improvement.
so I know one of the things Jody was talking about is the new roof on the addition of the library. That could be come out of that.
Depending on how much it is.
Yeah, depending on how much. Like a middle edition, if they have a new edition.
Solid waste.
Okay, so on this one, I can't remember what the last one was like, but
Yeah, we're down
Yeah,
almost
'cause I
twenty
met with-
thousand.
yeah, I met with Danae and I had put figures in there wrong. So this is the more accurate version.
And is solid waste fund is a standalone enterprise fund as well?
It is based on fees that are collected from users.
Are we still doing refines? Is this part of the recycling center now?
Yeah, it's through, Republic still does it. They'll send me a check and then I'll send it to the second. It's in their contract, they have to do that.
More questions on solid waste? Okay.
At the next public meeting, I'll have the mills by then, because we were doing that August. Well, I will have the mills by then, so the numbers will be more accurate, more set. I'll have, the revenue sheet plus the tax sheets that, you guys always see that has the breakdown of how many mills, cash available, revenue coming in, all that breakdown. So at the next meeting, I'll have all of that stuff for you guys, and we'll put it out as soon as, I get it updated. The next one will be a little bit more accurate to the actual budget you guys are gonna be looking at.
It's, one thing for us to sit up here and go through this, it's another for all these department heads and Lonnie to put this all together, and I appreciate all of their efforts